Thank you, Alex. So last week I was told that, hey, can we go over some of the losses and some of the, just kind of the lessons learned when it comes to fair and events? And it's interesting because if someone had said to me, let's go over some of the problems we've had in law enforcement, I could be up here for days. I could talk about county commissioners for days. I mean, road departments for days. I mean, but you know, I have to admit, I looked at the fair and events and I thought, you know, considering what a major event you have and what all the complications to it, I've been actually shocked how few claims have resulted at fair and events. And if they do happen, I typically can see that the county really did nothing wrong. I mean, it was nothing that the county did wrong to be fair and events. Yeah.
Can you end your presentation now?
Can I end it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just be done. But no, so these are kind of interesting ones and interesting situations. But okay, so I can move forward with this, right? So we're just going to talk about this, just general liability, the derbies, rodeos and events, sponsors, vendors, and animals. Now, when it comes to the sponsors and vendors, I'm not going to talk about specifically like how to do hold harmless agreements and all that. I think John is going to try to into the contracts and how you protect yourself from them. I'm just going to talk about some of the things that resulted as a result of having vendors at your fairs. So typically, a lot of things seem to happen probably in the parking lots or things that just as, you know, you're getting a lot of people coming to your fairs and they're all coming in and they get in a little fender bender in the parking lot or someone gets hit by a car in the parking lot. The counties have been really good at keeping organized with those things. I think you have cones out, you have directions, you have people parking people, but unfortunately people are people and they just have these events happen in the parking lots. The main thing the only reason I put this one up here is lately, it used to be car accidents happen and then people share information on the cars, who was at fault, and that's the end of it. But in the last few years, we've noticed that when there's these auto accidents, they're starting to try to blame other people. They're trying to blame the state for the way they designed the road, the county for being in the county, and just, I don't know what happened, but for some reason. So when there's an auto incident in your parking lot, don't try to jump in and say, you know, how can we help, really? I mean, let them work it out their insurance and try not to act like the county has any involvement in those kind of situations. And same with if one got knocked down by a car or something and they're injured in the parking lot. We just don't want to start saying, oh, you're on a property, we're so sad you're hurt, how can we help? And, you know, for some reason they interpret how can I help as, you know, the word fault somehow. You know, how can we help pay your medical bills and things like that? And that's just not what we want people to say. Because that's the call I get, is I get a lot of people calling up saying, hey, I was at the fair, county fair, and I fell down and I got hurt, and someone told me that you guys would take care of my medical bills, and because I was on your premise, that you know, your medical bills should be covered, and we just don't want to get in the habit of having any employees, volunteers, or anything committing to anything like that. Just, you know, that's what their health insurance is for, and unfortunately we're getting more and more people nowadays that don't carry health insurance. So I think that's the real problem with why they're trying to find other people involved, is people are not carrying health insurance anymore like they used to because of the cost. And the company employers not providing it and things of that nature. Okay, so derbies. I'm going to show you a video. And pretty much everyone in here has a derby in there. Who does the derby? Okay, now let's see if I can figure this out. How do we get the video for
I
you?
think just try getting okay and see if that would play.
No, it is the right one, okay.
Sorry, where we got hold of that.
No, that's okay, I was looking for the little,
The little triangle, yeah, the, like.
triangle. And I guarantee you'll want to see it again, because you're trying to figure out how the county is at fault in this instance.
How did it work before we started? Charlene saw it, she heard the audio, so she knows that it was working.
Yeah, I heard it too.
Yes, I will bear witness to that.
Okay, and how would I back it up?
Oh, you know what? When we reopened it did this. For whatever reason, it enabled that every time.
Can I watch closely at this thing? This is an actual claim of ours. This is a claim that we got here from Wasatch County, and we had it on video. And you'll see a lot of hard hits, so don't be thinking that's where the event is. You watch right? You watch right here. Did you see anything unusual in there?
Did you see it? You get the laser pointer off.
Yeah.
See that again.
It's because it's kind of fascinating to watch it. The first time you're like, wait, what? So here's the laser. Okay. It is the most, I mean, how would we ever predict this claim is beyond me. And it's not a driver, it's not an individual in the vehicle. And I'm sure all of you have on your tickets when you buy this, some sort of liability waiver. Okay. So look how hard these hit. Nothing. Hitting hard. Each other hard, and it's kind of a slow. There's a good hit. Okay, now watch as we're sitting here. Watch right there.
I saw that,
See that? That's the drivetrain coming out of that vehicle and launching all the way into the crowd. The drivetrain. They probably want to see it again. Now that they know they're looking
yeah.
for
I
it.
saw it the first time.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I did. I caught it the first time when it went into the air. I thought I saw
It
it.
is
The first time I saw it was on KSL News.
Oh, yeah.
Because, yeah, you just have to know what you're looking for. But when that car's laying on the side up against here, you'll just see it just. But you look at it, and all it is one car is pulling away from the other, and it just causes like a slingshot. It bends the drive shaft back, and then the truck moves, and the drive shaft goes. Yeah.
Step back a little bit on here at the end.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It works. It doesn't work. It works.
Oh, so you keep it that way. Okay, so,
It would have had to been leaped over according
yeah. So, who do you think was hurt in this one? The spectator. Somebody in the audience that had nothing to do with anything. They're just sitting there, and all of a sudden this drivetrain comes flying up and hits her and breaks her leg. And it's a miracle that no one else was really hurt. I mean, that thing is a big piece of metal, and it's coming fast. And it hit her, and luckily she had jumped up, moved out of the way, and it broke her leg. So she's from Las Vegas. She goes to Las Vegas and realizes, hey, I need to sue somebody for this. So she calls one of our favorite common injury attorneys here in Utah that you see, and wants to file a claim. So she files her notice of claim within the year, so that's great. And so we said, and then the negligence was we didn't do enough to protect the spectators. Well, I happen to know, I've got a long history with that attorney, and they're just one of these firms that just, I can't even explain it. They just will not go away. But they also will never go to trial. So it's kind of they kind of like to be so annoying that they annoy you to the point that you want to settle a claim, because if you go to trial. But luckily I knew that, and there's a group out of Provo that I had worked with for years, but I just remembered from my past that was how they work. So they get a notice of claim, and it's going to be deemed denied. We didn't have to deny it at that point. But immediately that attorney calls me up. Hey, let's talk settlement. I said, why? I said, because you broke your leg. Well, what did we do? What did the county do wrong to do that? You didn't protect them. I said, okay, you explain to me how the county would have predicted that. How did the county ever predict that? And then I said, he says, well, you should have put up some netting that's all around it. I said, how did that protect you? You'd have to put a bubble. I mean, it'd have to be netting that goes completely around so that nothing can escape and all this. Well, we're going to see you. And of course, 2 months goes by, nothing, and he calls me up and wants to argue again. Just argue. No, sue us. Keeps going. Keeps calling. And it came to the year mark where they have to file the lawsuit, and they didn't file a lawsuit. It went away. So sometimes, if we are not negligent, if you did nothing wrong, we can actually get these attorneys to go away. Shocking, but we did.
Can I just ask, how many of you would have liked for us to have just offered them 50 grand and make that go away?
Yeah, would it, you have thought that would have been a good idea? If they just said, hey, send us 10,000, we'll call it good right from the beginning. But do you know what would happen if we did that? Everything that happens at your fairs, someone will say, hey, throw me $10,000. So that's what it came down to. And these are the arguments I had with him. For one, I had told him there was an assumption of risk. That people know when they go to, and I used other examples. I said, look at a Jazz game. I said, how do they protect a player from flying into the crowd? And there's inherent risk when you do these kind of things, and you have to assume that risk. It's got to be on you too. On the ticket, I said, we have a copy of the ticket, and Wasatch County sent me a copy of the ticket, and on the back it says, we waive all rights to, Attorneys will get around that very easily by just saying that you did something outside of the scope that would be considered reasonable. Well, was that outside the scope of reasonable? No, because who would have predicted it? There's just no way you could predict that flying up like that. So the next hold harmless agreements, which Johnny will talk to you about, the companies that run these events, they usually should be signing some sort of a contract with you that they won't hold you responsible. Same with, and they better show you a liability insurance that these companies carry some sort of. The people putting on this derby have some sort of insurance. And then there's negligence. So we had one in Weber County. Sorry. It's probably before you were there, I'm sure. But so in Weber County, they had the derby going like this. Well, there's, where the cars come into the derby? There's kind of a tunnel way there, so there's no spectators in that. And there's a gate there. Well, there's another gate behind it, and two guys thought it'd be great if they just went through there and came up to the gate, and they actually climbed up on the gate and were sitting on the gate watching the derby. Well, the Weber County, I guess it was whoever's running the fair, they did the announcements, we got this is happening, this is happening. He said, they announced really loud, please get off the fence, please get off, you need to get off the fence immediately. And there was not a lot that the county could do because they'd be risking their lives by trying to get into there to help with this situation. And so the one guy jumps down, and the other guy jumps down, just as a car hit the gate just right, and the gate flew open and smacked these two men. And they had fairly good injuries. I mean, that gate hit them at a high rate. Do you remember that thing at all? Have you heard about that one? Okay, yeah, because it's been quite a few years ago. Now that one was kind of interesting because we thought, well, we had no, we weren't involved with that at all. I mean, we shouldn't have to pay a felony. But there were some pretty good injuries. And when we went to the mediation, they did file a lawsuit. They felt the county didn't do enough to get these people off that gate. And when we went to the mediation, there was just enough of a concern about how they got past that first gate because it wasn't shut, apparently. Well, that was the issue, was maybe it wasn't shut and the county people let it go. And so we got to mediation and we settled for each one for $15,000, one for $18,000. Does that sound like a lot of money to you? I mean, that's a good chunk, right? But really it was kind of a nominal settlement because really one had about 80,000 in medical bills. So really, when you looked at the big picture, you thought, no, it was just a way to get out. The mediator, going to trial was going to cost at least $30,000, and we just kind of thought, at the time, we kind of thought, let's get rid of this one. I don't know that this will ever happen again. It's probably one that isn't going to set a precedent, and we're going to settle the deal. And then, right after that, they left the gate open to the bowl arena, and one of the bowls went out on the highway that's closest to, I don't know where the fairgrounds is, I think it's not I-15 right there. It must be another highway, like State Road or something. And the bowl went out on the highway and a lady hit it and was killed. That one we actually got out because we were able to find out that the county was not the ones that left the gate up. So one little small act of negligence of leaving a gate open can make a huge difference between settling and not settling. Just if things like anything the county did, but we absolutely had nothing to do with that bowl getting out. The guy had gone in to check his bowls and he forgot to lock the latch and one bowl bumped against it and it opened and he went out. So we didn't pay anything on the bowl, which was good.
Corbett, can I ask a question about liability insurance for derbies? I've always been worried in particular about derbies because we have the requirements for the general liability policy, the amounts that we have to verify that they have insurance coverage for, but is there any type of endorsement we should be looking for? Because we don't see the actual policy, we see the certificate of insurance. I'm worried that there's some kind of exception for derbies in there, that we're not getting the full coverage that we need.
I just saw Johnny stand up because we've had this conversation before.
Any insurance service office's ISO standardized general liability policy is going to exclude any racing or what do they call it? They don't call it derby, but racing or collision type event with motor vehicles, with motorized vehicles. So absolutely, if they just tell you that if they tell you they have $20 million of general liability, they have zero coverage for a derby. They have to have an endorsement to cover that type of speed or, I can't think of the term that they use right now.
But the description sounds like a long version of derby. Just the way they described it.
So will that appear on the the certificate of insurance, or how do we verify that they have that endorsement?
You'd require it in the agreement that you got with them. And then when the certificate shows up, in the notes section of the certificate, it would either show that it's been endorsed for that, but a lot of general liability carriers, the reason that they exclude it is because they don't want to cover it no matter what. So it will most often actually show up as an entirely separate policy separate from their general liability, because they have to go somewhere else to buy it, because their regular general liability insurer probably isn't going to provide that, unless it's a big carrier like Chubb or AIG or something. Does
So
make
is that why
sense?
it fell back on the county for this instead of going to the promoter? Or-
Well, we've had those situations, the death in Miller, the group that was actually doing the derby, that was the one year that the county attorney didn't double check and make sure that they had insurance, and of course they didn't. So of course then all of a sudden they were all after the county, because the county should have made sure that the person putting on the derby event had insurance, and they didn't, and so it got difficult for us pretty quick.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of these plaintiffs, they name everyone that they can even think of, anyone. They just, you know, neighbors, friends, yeah.
So if it's the county through volunteers that's putting on the derby, not a promoter, how would that work?
You're promoting your own, really.
It's just that much more important than to stay awake during my presentation.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah, and I was just gonna say that. I think, Johnny, I'm pretty sure I thought he was gonna cover that, so. We haven't had this claim yet, but it's been on the news and I brought up the thing this time. Yeah, so should I just push on here? Because I was gonna say we can skip this one if it's not, if it's complicated. See. I've seen this one more on the news than I have in our county fairs. So I had to find one from another county. And I thought it was funny he was riding sideways, but look at that. Right into the crowd.
These type of animals.
Yeah, so have you seen these on the news?
Oh my goodness.
It's, let me stop. No, if you want. But it's, and I've seen bulls too, mostly bulls more than horses. But when the bull often just jumps over the gate and into the crowd, that's a disaster.
And Corby sent me his presentation, and all I saw was this picture right here where the animal was up in the stands. I thought it was the Draper Rodeo 5 years ago that I was at, and the bull went over the gate. They had set up, they knew that they were going to be, it was the second night of the rodeo, they knew that they were going to be at capacity, so they put up an extra portable bleacher just outside the gate where they took the animals in and out, and the bull went over into, and was like on the bleachers that was packed with people now, because as soon as they opened that up, people thought that's the best place in the house to be. And people were scattered. The bull then took off and damaged a bunch of the vehicles that were out there. All I could think is, I'm glad this isn't the county.
Yeah, and knock on wood, we've not, since I've been here, we've not had this claim. But it is to me, it's the highest risk of the fairs. Because the ones I've seen on the news have been horrible. And the bull gets in and it's kicking and jumping and falling and it's crushing people. And I think, oh my word, every year when the fairs come on, I just think I hope this is the year we have it. And maybe it's because all of you have done really good at making really nice arenas with good protection to keep these animals in the arena, because it's a disaster waiting to happen. Oh, I could just push down.
Well, there you go.
All right. Same thing, so Johnny will talk to you about rodeos, what you need to do as far as Pocahontas tournaments. The reason I have the signs is I think in the Weber County one, there was nothing about the sign, there was no sign that said do not go into that area. There's just nothing, and I think that was kind of one of the reasons we decided to throw some money at it too. Signs, do not enter, dangerous, whatever. And then keeping the spectators out of there. I think I remember the mediator saying, well, why didn't you have someone with the county, a security guard, standing in that area? So there's all these little things that the mediator brought up that we didn't really think about. We just thought, oh, well, we didn't go climb on the fence. But no one there watching, no sign. You can see why maybe that one we decided to settle that, because it got a little scary. Because in that case, we found that maybe we did do something a little off here. And, but not enough. The people that paid the most on it were the people that were running the Derby. There was an insurance agreement. Dave Wilson worked it out, and so they paid the big bucks. We just kind of mediation threw in a little bit just to get it done. So, we've had a lot of these actually at the fairs. Trippin Falls.
Can we go back to the rodeo?
Yeah,
You got in here liability waivers. Who are you trying to get a waiver from the rodeo?
so,
Participants or?
yeah, just anyone that is, there's someone that's got what are those called, John, where they have agreement that they'll transfer the liability away?
Hold harmless?
Well, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, basically it's a hold harmless
But
agreement.
they're really, is it something like they're?
But if any liability, right,
participating in it or something?
and if there's liability that they will not, that if they name the county, that they will then indemnify. So that was more,
I know some of you put on your derby, but I don't know of any of you that actually organized the rodeo. You've got PRCA or someone like that doing that. And that comment is, you try to get PRCA to recognize they're the ones that are in control. They're on your property. They should be accepting the liability for things that go wrong during the rodeo and taking care of you if something goes wrong with their rodeo. However, it's the PRCA. So we'll talk about that in my section, bring rodeos back up again, because PRCA is really hard to negotiate that stuff with, because they know they're the only game in town. If you want to have a rodeo, you got to have PRCA involved. And so they aren't real accepting. They actually want you to cover them for anything that happens at their rodeo. So we'll talk about that.
So in this slide, we've got liability waiver. That's the contract with your stock contractor or with the PRC. That's not, you're not trying to get the crowd to sign a waiver.
You want the crowd to do the waiver too, the spectators
But on their ticket.
on the ticket.
But if you don't charge for an event, what do you do there? Or something?
That's a big difference. If you're not charging for the event, you have the recreational immunity here in Utah. Everyone has that, and on top of that, we have the governmental immunity. So if you don't charge for stuff, we've got lots of immunity, but derby, rodeo, those are the types of things you do charge entrance to. Now, you're outside of those immunities, and you have to deal with how are we going to transfer the liability to keep from having to have a lawsuit against the county.
so what we want to do is make sure we have county folks going around and doing some sort of just keeping an eye out for things, just going around and making sure that these people are doing, because we had one where, and they ran those electrical, or the cords across like this, and the lady came and tripped and fell on that. Is that the one you were thinking of? Yeah. And, it would have been an easy one to see that, someone's going to trip on that. So it's nice that you go around, do your inspections. What happens if someone does, like in this one in Weaver County, what happens when they do fall down? Should we run up and say, we're so sorry, we're just, we'll get you an ambulance, we'll provide medical for you. We don't want to do any of that. We want to make sure they're okay. I mean, obviously, first aid, you're going to have immunity from that. If you go up and, someone's choking and you try to, or they're bleeding and you put on pressure and those kind of things we want to do. We want to provide it, but then let the professionals take over it and make no commitment of liability. Do not say, it's a weird thing about human nature. We want to be helpful. Deep down, I think we all want to be nice to people. And so we have an instinct of saying, don't worry, we'll take care of everything. We have that here in great nature in ourselves to do that. And we just want to make sure we don't say, we just want to say, I'm so sad, sorry that this happened, and leave it at that. Apologize for it happening. It's okay. Yeah.
Bobby, we require an incident report on every one of those trips and falls and
Oh, yeah.
injuries. We don't volunteer to take on the liability for it, but we want it documented.
Yep.
So when they decide later they want to sue us, we have that documented when it
Yeah.
actually happened. are we cutting our own throats?
No,
doing
not at
this
all.
every report?
No, not at all. In fact, I love those. I'm not sure if it's your county, but one of the counties has right on that form, was there anything that you felt the county did to cause this event or something like that? And I love it because it's always blank. And they'll put right on it that, well, the county didn't do it. I mean, they'll say, I guess don't have a fair, or, but they'll something stupid, but nothing about what the county did negligent. I don't know if it's even wise to bring it up, but I've seen that on some of the
No, we
forums.
don't have that, but we do ask what could have prevented this.
Oh, that's a good way to say it. That's a good way to say it. Don't even mention county, just say a good way to
What
prevent
could
that.
have prevented this
Yeah.
from happening?
And I love those. When you send those to me on those, I love them because I look right down and, oh, look. So when they call me, I'll say, well, you must have thought that,
When they say, I should have been reading text on my,
oh, right. And that, yeah.
the important thing there, Charlene, is the person that's doing that incident report, and really all of your volunteers, make sure that you're training them not to say, oh, well, that was stupid, why did we have those cords laying out there? We should have had those covered, because that happens over and over again. We've got one right now where somebody tripped in the county parking lot, and a bunch of the employees came out and said, yeah, this is horrible, we haven't been taking care of this. That makes it really tough. The county still wasn't negligent, but it makes it tougher for us. That's probably somebody who's going to move forward with a lawsuit who wouldn't have had not the county employees gone out and told them that the county was stupid. So that's what you want to be training your, one thing to think about when you're doing the volunteer training.
I think that's, training like that would be really good for staff too, because getting those reports, we don't do Norcross anymore, fortunately, but we used to get accidents every day in Norcross. And as far as I know, we never had any kind of legal action come from it. But it's really tough to walk out there with a notepad or a clipboard and a pen and talk to some mother who's watching her child bleed on the dirt, waiting for the ambulance to show up, and say, oh man, will you please fill this form out? That's kind of tough to do. And I've done it many times, but I ended up doing it when no one else in the staff would. It had to be done, and everyone else is like, I'm not going to go out there and talk to her. So there's got to be some training on that. That's a tough situation to walk out there and ask someone who's watching their loved one, with a cut or a broken something or whatever, to fill out a form. They do,
Yeah.
but it's intimidating to go ask them.
It's a lot easier when an event happens you don't even know about, and they show up at Charlie's office and say, hey, we had this event happen in the fair, and she just hands them the form and says, fill it out, right? Because you've done that before.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah.
And on the phone, if
Yeah.
they call.
Oh, even on the phone when they call
Yeah,
them.
when they start yelling.
And you
they'll
just
say,
fill
"Let me
out
send you
form?
this form. No, say, let me send you the form.
Oh, you
Or
send it.
explain the notice of claim to them and say, well, if you think we harmed you, this is the process.
Yeah, and on that, if they say you've harmed me, just refer them to the Utah code. Don't explain it. Don't even, unless you're the county attorney's office. But if you're not an attorney, don't be explaining anything legal to them because you're not an attorney. You're giving them legal advice, and you don't want to do that. Just say, oh, you're gonna have to go to Utah code. Don't-
Yeah, that's what I do. I give them the
Yeah.
citation. I say, you need to go look this up and follow the law.
Yeah.
You have to file that
Yeah,
notice. of
if
claim.
your county attorney feels the need to talk to them about it, that's fine, but don't give legal advice unless you're an attorney, so, for the county. We're gonna just go through these quick, because I know Johnny's, we don't even watch this one. But it's just one of those funny, I know you've seen them all, it's just the people walking, they're talking on the phone, and they run into a building, or they fall off, That's gonna be more and more happening in the fairs. People are getting more and more to where they are looking at their phones and not watching where they're going. So I think your trip and falls, falling into things, walking into things is gonna go up significantly and as we become addicted to our cell phones. Oh. That's funny, I figured out how to work it out.
Distracted driving is where the term was coined, and it's kind of evolved into distracted walking due to the fact of this proliferation of handheld devices. And we've all seen it. We've all seen people walking down the sidewalk while they're working their handheld device. And probably most of us have also done it ourselves. People say, well, I did it yesterday and I didn't get hurt. The more times we do something in which there's no adverse outcome, we're more likely to repeat behavior. The thing that a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of people end up falling because they just are not seeing the potential hazards that exist in front of them because their attention is on that handheld device. We're seeing this nationwide. We're seeing instances where people were using a handheld device, they stepped off a curb, they got smacked by a car. You look at a sidewalk in New York City or any major metropolitan city or in a shopping mall, how many people are actually using their handheld devices? It's not going to be easy to change. So that really when it comes down to the building owner, it really comes down to having to ramp up and be more diligent with respect to the potential hazards that can contribute to a slip, trip, or a fall in order to account for the fact your pedestrians are going to be using that handheld device. We're not really just talking about preventing lawsuits, we're really talking about people that can get pretty significantly hurt from a fall.
That was good, because that's what I was about, what's coming in the area, so maybe it's good we showed that. So instead of talking about the things that Johnny's gonna be talking about, I just put them in there, but I'll just tell you some quick stories of what happened. So I think it's Sevier County, they had a rodeo or something, and they had the cheerleaders come in to promote someone sponsored, and they decided to give away coffee mugs. And they had these, you know what, the coffee mug, they're made like this, they're made of like hard glass. And they came in and told the cheerleaders, hey, go out and give them out to the crowd. Well, the cheerleaders went out into the crowd and just started going like this, chucking glass mugs into the audience. So guess what we got? A claim for a lady that was looking this way and got her mugs on the side of her head. Luckily on that one, the county was held that the county did not do it. We didn't tell the cheerleaders to go out there. We didn't tell them to throw it. It was all the vendor, the guy that was advertising. I can't remember what he was advertising, but it was all on him. He didn't instruct us. So we got out. We ended up not paying anything. Bounce house. This one, okay, these bounce houses were not on county property. So the county property here ended the parking lot, and then just on the other side of the dirt road were these bounce houses in this one was Sevier County. And they were sitting there like that, and the kids were out playing, and out of the blue comes one of those microburst winds and took them and blew them over and landed on two people on the county property and injured them. It was an elderly couple and injured both of them. Now, I thought for sure we'd never pay on that one at all, but we ended up, because it wasn't on property, it wasn't us, we had everything in line, except apparently at the mediation it came out that the county nobody made sure that these things were tied down. And there was a debate on whether it was the county or not, and the people that own this, their insurance decided to settle, and we threw a little bit in to settle on it. This is quite a while ago. I don't know nowadays if I'd even have done that. But I do know that there's some county people that have gone over and looked at it and checked it out and never asked if it was tied down. And so there's just a little bit of a, county could have done better on that one. For one, they were allowing these people right off their boundary to set up all this goofy stuff. And so the point is just to make sure that you think of the weirdest things. This is probably the largest claim, the most common claim I get, and it's just animals. We have one right now. We've got one open right now that I know of. But we have so many children and people walking around these animals at the fairs, and you have horses that are awesome. I mean, every time I have a claim from a horse injuring someone, I get told that horse has never done that before, never injured someone before. Total fluke. That something may have bit it or something, a bee bit it or something, and so it just kicks its hoof, and it just happens to have a little kid that's walking too close and kicks the kid. And so this was actually a video too, but I couldn't have time to load it. it was just one of those incidents where this guy was just walking by right when someone honked a car horn and it kicked. And the reason I had that one on there is because a lot of them are because someone did something loud all of a sudden and the horse reacts. And they always seem to name the county. They want to name the county in these even though the county didn't own the horse. There was really no involvement at all. They're not in charge of the horse, they're not. But they named the county because they have it at the county fair. So they think, well, it must be involved in the county. The good news is we don't pay out on this. We usually end up getting out, but it's just sad that we still have to pay an attorney to get us out when we really did absolutely nothing other than provide a venue for something. So just be aware of the animals and the situations, and when you inspect them, you go to the fair, make sure that they're not because we're doing anything wrong, just so that we don't get named in some frivolous lawsuit that we shouldn't have been named in when it comes to animals. And really, that's all I really had. Is any other questions about not the coverage of insurance, but maybe on what you do at fairs or something that's happened to your county? Yeah.
I don't go back to animals for a minute. We've got a dog park on our property. What experiences do you have with dog park?
So dogs, pretty much animals are considered strict liability, especially dogs. So if you own a dog, it doesn't matter who's at fault at all. If you're the owner of the dog, you're at fault. So that's why, like a whole lot of homeowners insurance, you can get one bite. If a dog bites someone, they'll cover it because it doesn't matter. If a little boy comes up to the fence and he sticks his hand in and he's pulling the leg of the dog bites him, who's at fault? The dog. The dog is always at fault. It's what's called strict liability. It's like owning a swimming pool without a fence. It's an attractive nuisance. Kids are going to go to it, and if something happens, the owner's at fault. I don't know how the rule is with your dogs. Who owns them?
Just the public.
The public owns the dogs?
The dogs?
Yeah, the dogs themselves.
Yeah,
I mean, who's bringing them into you?
the public. It's a dog park. It's like an off-leash dog park.
Oh, one of those. Oh, okay. So yeah. So luckily you would not be responsible because of that. The fact that the owner of the dog has strict liability.
Well, I'll throw one more at you then, but I think you just answered that as well. Is when we have a dog show, where people bring their dogs, they run in the grass, they're showing their dogs,
Yeah,
or
same
they're doing
thing.
it, whatever, they're showing their dogs. They're still just liable for their dog.
Yes.
The show, though, I make sure that the vendor that's putting on the show has insurance, and
For sure.
make sure that you're going to be, again, you're going to be held, they're going to take care of any claim or reimburse you for any claim that comes against the county for the show. Because the problem with the dog park is, yes, that homeowner, that dog owner is strictly liable, but it's going to depend on whether or not the person who was injured is happy with the limits of homeowners insurance that they have to pay the claim. If their child has $500,000 worth of plastic surgeries and things to be done, and they only have the minimum limits of homeowners insurance, they're going to be coming after somebody else. So even though they're first in line, the county could end up second in line to pay what their insurance isn't going to pay. So you still have some risk there that you need to be aware of. And I'll talk about, it doesn't hurt to put a sign out front of the dog park that says there are inherent risks with dogs. And you assume that risk by stepping foot onto the county dog park. Gives us something to base a defense on.
Right. That's a great point. But more than likely, if they're dog shows and that, they probably have higher limits than the homeowners usually. But yeah, typically a homeowners is $100,000 liability, and unfortunately, dogs either attack the face or the hands or the feet. And boy, when they attack a child on the face, it can be completely disfiguring, and your $100,000 is not going to touch anything. But, so I said we got a question online.
Yes.
So is that Bueller?
Yeah. No, Susie in Washington County. She says, with these events, derby, bounce houses, etc., if the company, in this case, you said Washington County hired out our Derby and bounce houses, has their own insurance, how much is the county liable? So, it sounds like they hired out for security.
So they wanted to know how much insurance those people need to carry. I mean, that's what I'm taking, and I,
Oh, she says no. Sorry. Hang on a second.
well, while we're thinking about that, that's a good point, though. How much do you have, and I would imagine Johnny's gonna talk about that. Okay,
Yeah,
so,
Susie, we'll talk about that next year as I get started about how much, when they have insurance, are you okay?
right, that's a good question. Because they may have insurance, but like you said, what if they only have, 10,000 insurance? Then you're gonna need the secondary, so that's a good one to talk about eventually, is how much they should carry. And it's gonna be expensive for them, they're gonna have to pay a lot for them, and that may lose one of your organizations that want to come to your fairs. You may lose them because they can't provide the insurance you need. It's just unfortunately the way it is, yeah.
Is there anyone from Tooele County Fair in here?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I got a phone call from the Tooele County Fair just right before their fair, a couple weeks before my fair. And he said something, I can't remember the exact number, but something like, I've got 3 vendors. What's wrong?
I got a call too.
Did you? I can't remember the number. It was really, really small though. And it was because
Yeah.
vendors don't, it's a mom and pop. I can't speak for Tooele. This is kind of what I got from the conversation, so I hope I'm representing it correctly. You know, if someone's there to sell the widget they made in their garage, or
Right,
they don't have insurance.
right.
And they got hit with the requirement of make sure you get insurance from all your vendors, and they got no vendors now.
That's the concern. Oh, yeah, someone that just sets up a little art display and is gonna sell their art.
Yeah,
We expect them to go out and spend $1,000 for an insurance policy? Yeah. Are you gonna cover that at all, or, okay.
'cause I hope there's gonna be some kind of balance there, because it's just about, you would never fill your vendor hall if everyone you got had insurance.
Yeah,
We do.
Enough insurance.
We required it like, I don't know how many years ago, and we struggled the first year with it, but now they all just have it. And
Okay.
they found a place online, which I hope is good. It's like $100, it covers them for the fair week or something, but, and then the mom and pop, like the cheerleaders or something from the high school type thing, school covers them, school sends me a certificate, because it said organized, I don't know, practice. or
School
whatever.
fund.
Mhm.
yeah.
So-
Yeah, the cheerleader case in Sevier County didn't, because it was just a last minute decision. They just saw these cheerleaders and said, how do we get rid of these? And here, let's just go have them chuck it. And of course, they just, sure. You know,
All the other vendors that go place to place have it, from what I kind of,
Yeah, that's their job.
It's-
to
yeah.
travel around.
but but you're getting more people in town with food trucks and they have it too, so our problem's gone away pretty much, but,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, because the fair is one thing, I mean, those people, more of the vendors are more organized, it's what they do for a living.
Mhm.
But
yeah.
how many of you have like little craft shows and things that want to rent space to have a craft show or what do they call it?
Boutique, yeah.
Boutique, flea market, things like that. And now you've got a ton of vendors who don't normally do that and
Mhm.
don't have insurance. Would create a lot of problems, because now we're gonna talk about what all do you require of the different people.
Are you next?
Yeah.
Okay, that was a good segue.